of UFC 279. Who would have thought? We have El Cucuy, the boogeyman. He's got frosted tips like it's 1997. Tony Ferguson, the winner of The Ultimate Fighter, Season 13 at welterweight. Your 11th ranked lightweight taking on the unranked welterweight. Season 5 champ at welterweight, Nate Diaz of the 209. For Nate Diaz, he has an entourage that consists of more people than I think I might know in person, Matt. He has so many people in that damn entourage. There was jarring, there was jazzing, there was all sorts of crazy things going on behind the scenes at the press conference on Thursday night. Ultimately, we have Khamzat Chimaev coming in at 178.5, missing weight. Tony Ferguson successfully makes weight. Li Jingliang now fights Daniel Rodriguez at a catch weight of 180.
What a fight.
In the co-main event, Chimaev fights Kevin Holland at a catch weight of 180. Both guys, I think, maybe they were getting ready for 180. Who knows? Chimaev maybe had ulterior motives and crazy thoughts.
Closer to that than 170.
And if you look at this main event, we have a couple of OGs. Everybody's rallied around this fight. I can't believe these guys haven't fought before. Tony Ferguson, after he did the ceremonial weigh-in, after he kind of stared down with Nate Diaz, Joe Rogan gives him the mic and he asks him what he's thinking. And Tony's kind of doing this eating thing. And he said, and I quote, "Grab your fucking popcorn and blue slushies, motherfuckers, because we're going to have some fun." Tony Ferguson, like your weird Uncle Al, he's just doing crazy shit.
I'm going to get really close to the mic for this, everybody, and I'm really sorry. You have no idea how excited I am for Nate Diaz versus Tony Ferguson.
And hey,
I care more about this fight than I care about half the title fights we sit here and talk about.
Next weekend, you have Corey Sandhagen and Song Yadong.
A banger.
Get going. In this main event, this is way better than Chimaev and Nate Diaz. Like, Tony Ferguson and Nate Diaz are both in the same spots in their career. This could be the send-off fight. You're going to see your buddy over there that you coerce with over on Reddit that shares those Master Splinter memes when an old fighter gets kind of rode off into the sunset.
Sad.
This is that fight, and you got to get up for this one. It's big.
I don't give a fuck about titles or rankings. You know what I care about? Nate Diaz and Tony Ferguson. This fight's going to be awesome. Like, here's the thing. I'd be completely honest. I don't look at a lot of interviews on Fight Week and put a lot of stock into them. Like, I go on the knowledge that I have from their fighting style. And yes, if there's something alarming that comes out, then maybe I will look at it and put a little bit of research into that. But I was really worried about how Nate Diaz looked physically coming into this fight. There were pictures that came out of how he
there's
looked.
that one right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there were pictures of how he looked against Leon Edwards on Fight Week, and then pictures of how he looked going into this fight against Khamzat Chimaev. And like, going up against Leon Edwards, he kind of looked like the Nate Diaz who fought Conor McGregor. Like, he looked pretty shredded. Now, Nate Diaz is never, jacked like a Kamaru Usman, but you get the idea.
He's usually jacked like a kangaroo.
Exactly. He is. That's the best way to describe it. But against Leon Edwards, like, you could see his abs and whatnot. Against Khamzat, and I hate to say this because he's a better athlete than I'll ever be, but like, he looked kind of soft for Nate Diaz, if we're being completely honest. And I was really worried that he was just showing up for a paycheck. Like, this is going to be my big thing I was going to go on in question mark kicks. Are you just showing up to
everything he said? I mean,
that's what I mean. Like, I'm not being controversial by saying that by any means.
He's got to beat me. He's got to finish me. He's got to do this, that, and the other. And then I'm starting up a fight promotion.
And this is the thing, and this is where I'm going to kind of open it to conversation with you. Let's say he was going into that fight with the Nick Diaz mentality, let's say, against Robbie Lawler. Nick Diaz looked good, but, like, he kind of got lit up by Robbie Lawler, and once he got really hurt, he just sort of looked for a way out. Let's say he was going to do that against Khamzat Chimaev. Let's say when the going got tough, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but Nate Diaz is just going to get the night over with, and then it's over with him in the UFC. If he has convinced himself that, okay, now I am in a winnable fight against Tony Ferguson, is that enough time for him to really switch it around mentally? Because Tony Ferguson's in a very different boat. Yes, the fight against Li Jingliang is a very difficult fight. We all agree on that. But he could win it. Like, everybody can realize that, okay, he could go in there, maybe drop Jingliang with a right hand, get on his back, choke him out. That's a very Tony Ferguson way of winning a fight. I'm finding it very difficult, or I was finding it very difficult, to draw up or write up a script for how Nate Diaz is going to beat Chimaev. I can think of ways for him to beat Tony Ferguson. I just don't know if he has enough time to really flip that switch mentally, if you know what I mean.
You look at this fight, and if they decide to grapple, I mean, that would almost be best case scenario. You think, like, that would be wild, because you consider for Nate Diaz, you see all of the submission wins that he has. His biggest is the Conor McGregor submission that he had, UFC 196. My favorite, UFC 135, first round armbar against a fireball kid, Takanori Gomi. That's a great one. But if you look at it for Nate Diaz, his last win, he's taken on Anthony Pettis, UFC 241. He was in a non-title main event, UFC 244. After the Pettis win, he fights for the belt, the BMF belt against Jorge Masvidal.
If you smell.
And it wouldn't have been that, it wouldn't have been over if he didn't have the cuts. But if he didn't have the cuts, then it was over.
Well,
so
if Nate Diaz didn't have scar tissue, then hey, he'd probably be amazing.
But I bet you Anthony Kiedis is excited for this one. Now, we're jumping all over the page, and if we bring it on back, you do look at it for Tony Ferguson. He's aligned himself with a different camp for this fight. And it's not like, he's not doing his snap jitsu at his own gym. Obviously, Eddie Bravo is going to be a central figure, but Jackson Wink MMA has been the home for Tony Ferguson. And I expect to see a little bit more refinement out of a guy that, of course, he is older in his career. He's 38. He's a year older than Nate Diaz, and that's kind of crazy for what it is. But if you do focus in on Tony Ferguson's overall game, odd angle punches.
They're so similar.
Such a good clinch game. Such a good ground game. Flows on the ground. For Nate Diaz,
Flows
so
on
many
the ground.
great set submissions that he does have on the ground. But if you do consider it, he weighs heavy on a lot of his opponents, whether at 155 or 170 when he is on the mat. I think if you like those Tony Ferguson fights when he was 2013 to 2019, 12-0, he had so many performance bonuses. The fights that I was thinking of, the last two, the Cerrone fight and the Anthony Pettis fight, if you want to see a good Ferguson fight, I think that's the kind of fight that you're going to get this weekend against Diaz.
This could take me a second, and I do apologize. But remember when Cody Garbrandt went to Thailand and learned kicks for the TJ Dillashaw rematch? It was like, hey, Cody, the thing that makes you special is your boxing and is your hand speed. So why would you take anything away from that to improve your kicks? Because no matter how long you've spent in Thailand training your kicks, you're not going to be as good as TJ Dillashaw is as a Muay Thai fighter. Remember when Tony Ferguson went to Freddie Roach and became a boxer, if you will, started training his boxing a lot? Whatever he did with Freddie Roach isn't going to make him as good of a boxer as Nate Diaz is. Like, the Diaz brothers were training partners and sparring partners with Andre Ward. Andre Ward might be the second best super middleweight fighter of all time behind Roy Jones Jr., who might be the greatest fighter of all time. So my point is, if Tony Ferguson shows up and tries to strike with Nate Diaz, because that's the thing, both guys are elite with their jiu-jitsu. I think we can agree on that. They're both very good with their striking, borderline elite with their striking, I would say. The thing about both guys is they struggle a little bit defensively with the takedown. They're both decent with their own takedown, but the thing is, they both struggle defensively with the takedown because they don't mind giving up the takedown. They're very good at jiu-jitsu, and that's my question. I think we're going to get a primary striking battle out of these two guys, even though they are grapplers by trade, if you will. Like Nate Diaz, if you deconstruct his game, jiu-jitsu is going to be at the base, and same thing with Tony Ferguson. I just think we're going to get a boxing match out of these two guys. If we get the best version of Nate Diaz versus the best version of Tony Ferguson on the feet, I think Nate Diaz is going to win that fight, even though I'm not sure just because I said it. The flip side is, if Nate Diaz is half checked out, if you will, if he is just looking forward to what's after the UFC, is, 24 hours going to be enough for him to really flip that switch and figure out a game plan to beat a guy like Tony Ferguson?
You look at this matchup, and for me, originally for Diaz taking on Chimaev, we saw the volume numbers in his last number of fights just absolutely fall off of a cliff. He would come on strong as the fight went on, and as it got kind of wearing through, you saw that against Leon Edwards. Fifth round, Diaz rocks him. He's taunting. He's having a great time. And if you just watch that round, you think Nate Diaz won the whole fight, but in reality, it's the same thing. If you watch Tyron Woodley and Jake Paul, you see that one shot of Woodley after he lands and Paul up against the ropes. Tyron Woodley won that fight, but if you do look at it, at this fight in particular, Tony Ferguson round one against Michael Chandler didn't look terrible until he ends up getting finished. For Tony Ferguson in these other two fights, Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush, he's just getting absolutely ground out, something that we've never really seen. And for Ferguson, 66% takedown defense, made that mistake earlier on in the week. For Nate Diaz, 41%. So something that does scare you a bit, but again, threat of the takedown to work the jiu-jitsu. So when you look at this matchup in terms of the odds, Ferguson opened quickly to plus 135. It has gone all over the place. Ferguson minus 135 as it stands. Friday night when we make this video, for Nate Diaz, open a minus 155, somewhere in and around a plus 110. If we do have a look at your poll results, Fight Night picks, you folks get the chance to let us know who you have in these matchups. 54%, it just changed for Tony Ferguson, 46% going with Nate Diaz. So I love the fight. I think it's going to be great. And for me, Matt, I'll make my pick. I have Tony Ferguson in this matchup to get the win. I think a big difference maker, we talk about it every Nate Diaz fight, he's heavy on the lead leg. And if you go back to those 2 fights that Ferguson had, Donald Cerrone, Anthony Pettis, active throwing the leg kick. Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush, not as much because of the takedowns.
I'll help your point even more if you want.
Go ahead.
Nate Diaz has awful scar tissue. What does Tony Ferguson do every time he gets close to an opponent?
A lot of elbows all the time. So elbows and kicks, a big difference maker for Tony Ferguson. The 2 question marks you have to ask yourself. How does Nate Diaz's scar tissue hold up? How does Nate Diaz make out? Originally scheduled for Khamzat Chimaev, defending the takedown all the time.
How does Tony's chin hold up?
Obviously, Nate's down to fight whenever. For Tony, it's a question of the chin. It's a question of the game plan as well, because we don't know what Tony's going to look like out of Jackson Wink, Mike Winklejohn. It's just an odd, thrown together type of thing. Aaron Pico went there and found a little bit of success away from Team Body Shop. Can Tony Ferguson do the same thing after chin issues as well? We'll see how it lands for him, but I do have El Cucuy in this matchup.
I don't know if it was easy for you to come to that decision, but I'm having a really hard time with this fight, if I'm being honest, because there is a part of me that thinks, okay, let's say Tony is somewhat compromised with his durability. I'm not going to say he has a bad chin, but you understand what I'm saying.
38-year-old with 32
who's been
fights.
through some wars in his life. What if Nate Diaz fights him like he fought a later career Gray Maynard after Gray Maynard had been hurt a lot? Hurts him with a lot of volume, because that's the key to hurting somebody who doesn't have a great chin anymore. It's not throwing power shots, because you're going to hurt them no matter what. If you just throw a lot at them, well, one of those shots is going to get through and have a real effect. If Nate Diaz does hurt Tony on the feet, like he did Conor McGregor, for instance, hits him with a straight right, has him rocked, Nate Diaz can get you with that avalanche that's really going to hurt you and make the refs step in. The flip side is, and I agree with you, Tony Ferguson can go to the legs, go to the body, use those elbows on the inside, and again, I'm not right just because I say this, and there's no way in hell I can prove this, but still, I think Tony Ferguson thought he could beat Li Jingliang. Like, I think he thinks in his mind, okay, if I beat Li, I can go on a bit of a run at 170, I can have some fun fights, maybe the RDA rematch is out there, I know he's at 155.
Get the popcorn and the blue slushies.
Exactly, like, there's a lot of fun fights out there for Tony Ferguson, whereas for Nate Diaz, I think he's looking past the UFC. I think he's thinking about, hey, what's KSI doing? Like, what's Jake Paul doing? Like, those are the type of fights that can get Nate Diaz a lot more money than he can get in the UFC just by using his notoriety. And the good thing for Nate is, if he lost to Chimaev, that's going to be a one-sided beatdown. It's really going to damage his product. If he loses to Tony Ferguson, and my pick is, I do agree with you, I have Tony Ferguson. If you lose to Tony Ferguson, though, it's going to be a back-and-forth brawl where both guys are going to get hurt. You're going to get takedowns from both sides. This is going to be an incredible fight where it's going to be one where neither guy's stock gets hurt from a loss, both guys' stock would go up immensely from a win. So I agree with you. I do have El Cucuy, but this is a really close fight.
Awesome fight. Both of us with Tony Ferguson. Let us know. We need those comments down below. This fight, Jingliang versus Rodriguez. That one's a catchweight at 180. Kevin Holland getting the opportunity against what was supposed to be one half of the main event. Khamzat Chimaev. You can boo him because everybody did at that press conference. Holy smokes, Chimaev. If you had a lot of stock in the UFC cards, the Chimaev cards, I'm sorry to say it's going down today. It's just like having Jared Kelenic cards if you're a Mariners fan. But Matt, we have some big time fights coming up this weekend. 2 hours before the prelims, 4 p.m. Eastern here on the channel. Question mark kicks, final picks and predictions for the entire card because some other fights have changed as well. We also have the sidekick 15 minutes before the main card kicks off. That's 9:45 p.m. Eastern. You're going to be able to tune in here throughout the entire main card. We're going to be talking, chopping it up, as they always like to say in the broadcast, and having a good time during these fights. Now all of a sudden, I'm re-energized, and maybe they wanted this too, but Hunter Campbell did the damn thing, and we have a big-time card coming up this week.
We certainly do. I'm really excited for the pay-per-view tomorrow. Even though we've had a lot of hijinks, it's going to be a great card. There's 3 phenomenal new fights that they put together, and like we've said, I'm so excited for this main event. Like, this fight gets me more excited than the majority of title fights that we sit in here and talk about, so I think it'll be a great card.
You're going to want to keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, and as we always say, let's get into it.